Welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to make smoked beef ribs. Alright, now I've got this beautiful 3-rib rack of beef ribs. Look at the marbling on that. These just look awesome. I picked these up from my butcher at Austral Meat, and we're not going to trim these up. As you would have seen in a previous video, I've done a comparison where I didn't trim a rack of beef ribs and then I completely trimmed another one up and removed that bottom membrane, and the one I didn't trim at all came up better, so we're going to stick to doing that. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it down in the description. But the first thing we're going to do now is just give these ribs a light coat in yellow mustard, which is just going to help our rubs stick to the meat. And then I'm just going to use a combination of my spicy steak shooter and beef bounce rub, but if you've got another favourite rub for beef ribs, go ahead and use that. Or honestly, a 50-50 mix by weight of kosher salt and cracked black pepper will do the trick as well. Now look, if these beef ribs did have lots of excess fat on them, I would trim that fat down to around 2 to 3 mil thick, but these only had a very thin layer of fat on top, and now they're all seasoned up, we'll set our smoker up. Alright, now we're going to use a drum smoker today, so we'll open it up, take our cooking grate off, we'll remove the heat deflector, and then you want to fill the charcoal basket with either lumped charcoal or briquettes. And then we want to bury a fire lighter in there and light it up. Alright, so this charcoal setup is the minion method. As you can see, those briquettes are almost ready and they're just going to slowly burn through all of those unlit briquettes throughout the cook. This charcoal setup is perfect for drums and Kamado style smokers, or if you're using a kettle style barbecue like the Blackjack here, a Weber kettle, or any other kettle style barbecue, you probably want to be using the snake method if you're smoking beef ribs. Now with the snake method, you want to be using briquettes as they're all the same size and shape. And you just really want to be building them up in a domino fashion so they're all stacked up against each other. You want to build that around 3/4 of the way around your charcoal grate, and then depending on the size of your briquettes, you'll double them up down the bottom, and then you'll just run a single stack through the middle if you're using bigger briquettes. For these smaller ones, I'd usually do 2 and 2. When the snake method's running right, you'll get 10 to 12 hours plus out of it. And then with the pellet smoker, it's as easy as filling the hopper, turning it on, bringing it up to temperature, and then you're ready to cook. Now these briquettes have caught light nicely, we can shut our lid, open up both of our vents, and we can bring this barbecue up to just below our smoking temperature, which for this cook is going to be around 275 Fahrenheit or 135 Celsius. Alright, now we're up to temperature. We can open our lid. I'm going to get a couple of beautiful bourbon barrel chunks on straight on the fire. We'll get our heat deflector back in, then our cooking grate, and beautiful rack of beef ribs. And we'll shut our lid and let these start smoking away. Alright, so while we had our lid open, our smoker obviously dropped temperature, but it's been around 5 minutes since we've done that. So I'm just going to shut our intake vent down a little bit now. We're back up to temperature, and that should stabilize us off where we want to be. If we overshoot our temperature, I'm just going to shut it down a little bit. If we need to bring it back up a little bit, I'll open it up. And I'll just keep doing that until we find that sweet spot. But with the drum, it's usually super easy. Alright, so normally with my beef ribs, I just let them go until they're probing tender around that 205 Fahrenheit or 96 degrees Celsius internal mark. That usually takes around 8 to 10 hours, but today we're going to let these go for around 3 to 4 hours. Let that bark build up, and then we're going to wrap these today to see if we can get a better result. I'm not going to spritz these at all throughout the cook. Like I said, I'm just going to simply let them go for a few hours. So we'll let these smoke away and we'll check back in once we're a bit further into this cook. All right, we're a little over 2 hours into this cook. I just wanted to show you how these are coming along. Got some awesome drawback on these bones. As you can see, these beef ribs are super thick. I'm really excited to see how these ones turn out. I want that bark to continue coming along. I reckon we're still another hour or 2 off wrapping. So we'll close our lid and let these keep smoking away. All right, we're almost 5 hours into this cook now. I reckon we're ready to wrap these up. They are looking awesome. I'll have a quick check of the internal, right around 85 degrees Celsius or 185 Fahrenheit. They might look done, but they certainly aren't. They're still a little bit tight. So we'll get them out and onto some foil. I've got 3 layers there just to help protect them bones. And I'm also going to get a couple of tablespoons of beef tallow on top here. And then we're going to carefully wrap these up nice and tight. And then back in the smoker. I'm just going to sit them in a foil tray as well, just in case that foil splits. And then we'll let our beef ribs go until they hit an internal temperature of around 96 Celsius or 205 Fahrenheit, and then we'll start checking for probe tenderness. Alright, these beef ribs have been wrapped up for a bit over an hour and a half, so we're getting towards 6.5 to 7 hours into this cook. And that is feeling super tender through that foil. And we're right at that internal temperature we want to be at. So I might unwrap these and have a proper probe around. And they are feeling super, super soft. So what I'm going to do now is bring them out. I'll leave this foil unwrapped for about 5 minutes just to let these beef ribs steam off and stop that cooking process. And then I'll loosely cover them back up with foil and let them rest for about an hour at room temperature before we come back to slice and serve them. And with our smoker, we can simply just shut the lid, close both of our vents, let that charcoal die down, and then any unburnt stuff we can use in our next cook. Alright, so our beef ribs have been resting for a bit over an hour now. So let's get these out and slice them up. Wow. Look at that. Juicy as. These are some monster beef ribs. Good smoke ring, good bark. I cannot wait to dig into these. Wow, let's have a taste. That's so good. That is so tasty, so juicy, full of flavour. Definitely one of the best beef ribs I've ever had. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'll wrap my beef ribs every time because I've produced some really good beef ribs just leaving them unwrapped. I think I'll have to play around with it a bit more, but seriously, these are amazing. As you can see, juicy as, good bark, good smoke ring. There's so much flavour in there, and wrapping them definitely did speed up the cooking process as it usually does anyway. So there you have it. There's how to smoke beef ribs. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to my channel, give the video a like. But for now, that's the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.